Welcome into Northside Territory, presented by Fox One, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner, Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. And Patrick, the Cubs season is over, eliminated by the Milwaukee Brewers in 5 games. It was a great series. These are 2 even teams, but the Brewers just came out on top. They outpitched them, essentially. Threw so many arms at them all series long, and it just, they outlasted them in 5 games. The scene in Milwaukee, I think we all kind of focused on this after that final out. Just, the streamers coming from the sky there, and Cubs players just kind of staring off into the watching the celebration as the Brewers, advance to face the Dodgers, and there's Nico Armstrong, Nico Horner, staring off into the distance, and Pete Crow Armstrong, who I don't think anybody is surprised to see him just kind of with his arms draped over the dugout railing and just kind of staring off and kind of soaking it all in, and I guess taking in the pain would be the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it was weird to see a team that was so on to the next one, that compartmentalized everything, for them to have to face the end. And you could see Pete's eyes were still red. He had this like glassy look in his eyes by the time the clubhouse opened to the media. Nico Horner was extremely emotional. He gave several, as always, extremely insightful answers, but you could tell he was kind of catching himself here and there because the emotions were coming. Dansby Swanson was in full uniform, like probably an hour after the game.
Yeah.
He had his sandals or slides on, but otherwise his jersey was on, just full uniform otherwise. But then they start to process it, and they're doing the hugs, crack open a couple beers. What do we got in the spread back there? That's always, and it's like, it just felt to me like a team that did not have its kind of world come crashing down, in the sense, like reading our buddy Matt Gelb's coverage of the Phillies in The Athletic, that is, okay, is the manager on the hot seat? All these, iconic players about to come free agents, or key players about to come free agents, an angry owner, a Hall of Fame caliber executive who's known to make bold decisions. This, to me, didn't quite have that weight, but clearly a disappointment, and a season that left Cubs fans wanting more, no doubt.
Yeah, I think that's inevitable when you lose the final game of the season. Cubs fans, I have to say this, Cubs fans, you should be proud of yourselves. That atmosphere created at Wrigley Field. Anyone that says, you're just there to have a beer, it's the world's largest beer garden, they've not been to Wrigley Field during the playoffs recently. And it's been a while. I hope that is what Wrigley Field is in the postseason going forward. I hope it wasn't just because it has been a while, but man, were those fans on top of every moment. And this is not me ripping the Brewers fans, but they needed like cajoling from the scoreboard to tell them, like, cheer for this guy's name, chant this guy's name. That doesn't happen at Wrigley Field. They did that on their own, and I was impressed. And I don't know if I guess I didn't sense that reputation for Wrigley Field and Cubs fans, but I think they deserve it now. They were into the game. They knew what was going on. They could sense the big moments, and they were on top of that. Like that's my biggest takeaway as far as something I learned about in this postseason. I was impressed with the way fans reacted and the way they supported that team. And it was, that clubhouse. Nico Horner's who stood out to me. There were like 4 questions maybe, and I think we all kind of, after like listening to him, we all kind of like looked at each other. We're like, I I got no more. I can't ask this guy any more questions. Like he's making me sad. This is like he was very thoughtful, and it wasn't like he was tearing up, but you could sense the emotion. You could feel it, how passionate he was, and how much the end of that hurt. And he's just like one of those players that's like he just played so well. He rose to the moment. It was fun to watch him play, and kind of his type of baseball works anytime against any type of pitcher, against any team. And it worked in the postseason, and he was on base all the time, getting, single after single. He's not a power hitter. I think he had 1 home run, that 1 extra base hit in the first game blowout loss to the Brewers. But just, it was fun to watch him play and kind of rise to the occasion. Someone that deserves to be a part of winning and hasn't really seen much in his Cubs career. That his post game is what really stood out to me. Yeah, it was I just can't I can't get really fully past how he was just kind of like pouring himself out there without fully like opening up, but like really, like it was so clear how much this hurt. And he like kind of held back in a sense of like he didn't like break down in front of us, but it was like, man, this guy, and he's got like this stare when he's feeling a lot of emotion that you can kind of see. And you're like, okay, I just need to walk away now. Otherwise, I think I'm gonna like feel like I'm in a therapy session or something like that.
I mean, I've said this before, and whenever I talk to Nico, I feel the same way when I'm walking away. He talks like Theo Epstein, like his voice, his pacing, his insights, his ability to like in say 90 seconds cover 6 or 7 different topics coherently, acknowledge one side of the argument, acknowledge the other side of the argument, and then tie it all together in the end in like a synthesizing comment. And he does it as someone who is a high level player, a Gold Glove defender, universally respected in that clubhouse. It's super impressive. I think that's probably a story we'll write at some point this October of just kind of Nico, how he really made his mark during these playoffs. And you walked around the clubhouse and you see different guys kind of packing up. There was certainly like a core group of players. Like there was a lot of players who just did not really see the field. And clearly there was a bullpen sort of hierarchy there. We'll get into a lot of those other kind of matters in subsequent shows, but I think there's one guy, if it's not Nico, the other guy that everyone was talking about was Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, let's discuss the Kyle Tucker situation after a break.
October baseball is here. The pressure's on, the lights are brighter, and with DraftKings Sportsbook, you're right there in the middle of every moonshot moment. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the intensity of October with player props, live in-game betting, and odds that can change as fast as a ball flying over the fence. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Minimum minus 500 odds required. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Welcome back to Northside Territory, presented by Fox One. The Kyle Tucker question, I mean, we've been talking about it since that trade occurred. This is not a surprise to anyone that it is a big topic. And it was, if not the first question, one of the first questions he faced after the game. What is he going to do like what are his thoughts about free agency? Just in general, not much of a like of insight there from Kyle Tucker. I don't think we got any groundbreaking news. Kind of what he's said all season long, but with the finality of the season upon us, he just basically said, we'll see. If I'm here, I'm here. If I'm not, good luck to these guys. Was one of the comments. So not much there, but I think we all, at least you and I, many of our colleagues and the people we talk to, I don't think anyone really sees a scenario with Kyle Tucker coming back to the Cubs.
Well, that question was like a leading question. It was something along the lines of, how much would you like to be here? Like, can't you see yourself being here for a long time? It was not a neutral, open-ended question, and he still went there of like, I don't know, we'll see what happens, and gave the best of luck quote, which I believe our buddy John Greenberg was saying. It was like a yearbook message or something like that. You wrote this, I picked up on it the next day in The Athletic, of this is not someone who's going to emote for the cameras or like wax poetic about Chicago Cubs baseball. And he should not be judged on that. I think that personality helped turn him into one of the best hitters in the game. But like, if you're looking for signs, there are different ways you can answer this or handle things. And it's not even the answers or the body language, which he was shrugging, like that question we're talking about. He was like, and shrugged.
Yeah.
It's more of just watch the games, watch what happened. Like, there's nothing in that second half that made you think the Cubs have to go all out to sign this guy. There's no sort of public pressure in that regard. Not that the Cubs caved to that, but I think that played a role in bringing Cody Bellinger back. I think there was like kind of a bit of an antsiness there. I wonder how the rest of the baseball industry views him after this year. Maybe I think it certainly has come down from the heights that we thought were possible when Vlad Jr. signed his $500 million deal with the Blue Jays. I realize that was different circumstances, but you start talking about this very exceedingly small group of elite hitters in the game. Kyle Tucker is in that one. And, I don't think he'll be a Cub next year, but I wouldn't put it at 0%, just in the sense of like, you never really know what's going to happen in free agency. Like, I remember being told Dexter Fowler is going to get paid. There's no chance he's coming back. And then that was towards the end of that 15 season. And then he reaches an agreement with the Orioles. Then all of a sudden he shows up at spring training with the Cubs, surprising. I think even like Rizzo, right? Like, those guys like, wait, is that Dexter Fowler? That guy looks like Dexter Fowler. So obviously that's an extremely rare scenario. I'm not like banking on it, but I do think in the moment people are going to be down on Kyle Tucker. But I do think once you step back and look at what else is out there and how you solve for wins, to use a Cubs term, like, Kyle Tucker helps a lot. And it's just going to come down to, it's the same thing it always was with the Cubs. It's, what do their models say? What does he want? Like, they're not shutting the door. It's just that I don't think there's any like momentum or urgency or traction here yet.
Yeah, I don't think the Cubs are a front office that are going to judge everything off of, what was it, 8 games in the postseason. But Tucker didn't have a monster postseason. He didn't have a terrible postseason. He didn't have a monster postseason. You brought up Vlad Jr. Vlad Jr.'s had a monster postseason. That it's 8 games. It's not everything isn't decided on that. I do think going to an even, like, the Mets or the Yankees, how would he handle that media market? How would the media handle him? They may be harsher with his kind of boring answers, not always available for the. It's not that he wasn't available; it's that he's just not. He's not someone you go to a lot and say like, "This is the guy to get the interesting quotes, the team leader and face of the franchise type guy." He's just not that type of person, and I think in a market like New York, he'd get criticized for that. That would be hard for him. I I do think I'd just be very surprised if he comes back to the Cubs. Here's another thing. Like if he's looking for a bounce back contract, which I've gotten no indication of that, but let's just play that scenario out. Why would he come to the Cubs? Why would a left-handed hitter, power hitter, come to Wrigley Field, where a place that's suppressed offense, especially for lefties, the past 2 seasons? Uh, just side note there, all the more reason to give Michael Busch credit for the season he just had. But uh, Kyle Tucker, if he is looking for that type of deal, which is something I'm sure the Cubs would like for any player, they love those types of deals. Why not go to another place? Why not go to the Yankees if they want to do a deal like that? Just go to Tampa. Go anywhere else that makes that where your offense isn't suppressed by the ballpark. That would be my thought on a short term like opt out type deal where Tucker is looking to cash in after next season. I don't think that happens. I think he gets the type of like a semi-respectable deal. I don't think he's getting Vlad Jr. money. All that talk is I don't think anybody in baseball really believes that now. It kind of is like what range is it 200, 300? Like that's kind of what people are thinking right now when you talk to people around baseball. And that, he'll be fine. I think he's going to get a long-term deal. I just don't see it with the Cubs. I agree with you. We can't put it at 0% because off seasons are weird and weird things happen. It's hard for me to envision how he comes back. I don't love like too much criticism about, he was hurt. He had issues. Like his numbers were great. He had a really great season. I think that can't be overlooked. I don't want to, tear him down because of that second half, but it did happen. And it was, at times perplexing. And then especially the postseason, just not that final game is going to linger for a while for some people, I feel. And it was, they had one threat in that final game and he happens to come up in a pretty big moment and can't get the job done. Unfair to criticize him for one at bat, but that's why he's here, to come up in the biggest moments and deliver. That didn't happen. So that may just be the lingering memory of the Kyle Tucker Cubs experience, but he certainly had a great season. I think, how you replace that, what you do is more relevant to what we're going to be discussing this winter than like, is he coming back and is he worth the money? I don't think it's going to happen. We'll have to talk about it until he's signed wherever it is, because like you said, there's that outside possibility. But I think the real discussion is in other areas.
Yeah, and I just think like Kyle Tucker could see what's out there, and the Cubs could sort of assess things. And I'm with you. I don't think they are super keen on going long term. I think it's not so much the playoff at bats as much as missing September. He had an injury last year that cost him a couple months, however long it was. As you get older, you approach 30. Like, how far into his 30s do you want to invest in? And that's something the Cubs are not super interested in. But I still think there's the only reason he would do some sort of short-term thing is that if he is that confident or like his agency wants the super big, super long contract that much that they're willing to kind of risk it for another year. Because there's still someone who's like 40% better than the average major league hitter over like more than 3,000 plate appearances in the majors. Like, I still think if he walks out the door, I don't think you can just plug in Owen Casey, Moises Ballesteros, and Seiya Suzuki. I think you still need someone somewhere else. I know you alluded to it in your 3 questions piece on The Athletic of like, do you go back to Bregman? Is there a trade out there? I just don't. That offense was so good in the first half, and he was such a huge part of it. And even in those 3 prior elimination games, he was getting on base a ton against, good pitching, locked in pitching. Like, I think he was on base like 9 times in those three previous elimination games this October. So I get it if they're not really super interested in you being a part of Kyle Tucker's long-term future. I just don't think, to your point, Sahadev, that you can just totally dismiss him, because he was awesome for a long stretch this season and for most of his career.
Yeah, I mean, those at-bats were really good up until the final game. There were certain at-bats. He took some really good pitches. That Ashby at-bat, I know, like I said, it's going to linger, but that was, like, those were some nasty pitches. Yes, he got the 3-1 pitch was right down the middle, but that's a hard pitch to hit coming from a lefty. That is why he's there, to hit those pitches. I get it. But the one that got him to strike out, that was just a perfect pitch. It's just an awesome pitch. You got to give some credit to the opposition. But he had some really good at bats leading up to that. Was not chasing, just, quality at bats. I thought you wanted to, there was a point I thought he had kind of clicked and was like, ooh, okay, he hits that home run. What kind of game 5 are we going to get? It didn't happen. He didn't deliver. And now, narratives are written after that. And I agree.
What we're here for.
Yeah, he's incredibly impactful. Changes the dynamic of the lineup when he's healthy and out there. We can't just ignore that first half. Let's talk about like how they kind of look at what else is going on this offseason. Take a quick break.
Let's hit this week's Arena Club slab pack poll. We opened a Ruby. We went big.
We did.
$250 pack.
That was, what, the nerves got me. I think it was so exciting because the motion, it waits about 4 or 5 seconds for the card to come up. Card that I got was over $300, a prospect from the Mariners. And for me, I love the card. I thought it was great. And guess what? I sold it back.
Yep.
And now I got a little more money, and now I can go buy another one. You have to wait a couple minutes afterwards. And this is the excitement of the whole thing. Put your money where your mouth is and have fun with Arena Club.
You can see that big smile on Todd Father's face. Lazaro Montes, who's supposed to be good. He's Baseball America top 3. He's in the Mariners organization. But Todd Father sometimes thinks prospects are suspects.
Sometimes.
So he's going back to the well, and we'll see what he gets next time. Use the code FOUL, FOUL, at arenaclub.com/foul if you want to get in on the first slab pack experience and get 20% off, or 20% off your first card purchase.
Welcome back to Northside Territory, presented by Fox One. Patrick, I don't know what direction they'll go to help the offense if Kyle Tucker heads elsewhere. It's that I think is going to be fascinating. I think it's really risky, like you said, to just stick with all youngsters. Somewhere they need another veteran somehow. I'll be curious to do that, but that's not the only issue with this team. They're losing. There were 5 bullpen arms that were leaned on in this postseason, and kind of down the stretch, you kind of know who Craig Counsell was trusting. Daniel Palencia is the only one guaranteed to return, unless he's part of a trade package or something like that. But he's the only one that they can have complete control over and expect to be back. Andrew Kittredge, I believe, has a $9 million option that has a $1 million buyout. Look, maybe he's worth that. Maybe they deem like this is what his value is on the open market, and they decide to pick that up. I think you and I would both be surprised by that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'd be surprised by that. It just doesn't seem like what this front office does. And then it's Brad Keller, Drew Pomerantz, Caleb Thielbar, all free agents, all huge parts of this season, and the bullpen. you were there for when Brad Keller talked. Drew Pomerantz indicated that, he'd like to play some more. He's not retiring just yet. He'd like to continue playing. Brad Keller, I think, indicated that, he'd love to be back, or love to come back to the Cubs. I think it's really hard to envision a scenario where those guys come back. The Cubs front office doesn't do that. They find those guys and they hope that they have the bounce back or breakout season, and then they kind of let them get paid. It's a risky way to go about it because sometimes it doesn't always lock in, or sometimes it takes a while, or sometimes those guys just stay injured or whatever it is. So it's risky, but it's worked in 20, 21, 22, didn't work in 23, didn't work so well in 24, then it worked great in 25. So you see, like, it's a mixed bag, but I think that's a huge question going into the offseason.
Yeah, I circled back to Keller just to kind of ask him, his thoughts. And he said, once again, this is the most fun I've ever had playing baseball. Of course, I love the city, love to come back. And he's also aware that he's proven something to both himself and the entire baseball industry, and being a trusted guy in elimination games, the end of elimination games. You're right. Kittredge's a hard one for me to see them picking up. I think that would probably prevent one of those other guys from coming back. It just, when you think about the Cubs bullpen, it seems like they like taking shots on goal, to use a jet analogy. And then if you start locking up $9 million here, whatever it would cost for Keller, then all of a sudden you're kind of boxed in, not just with the money, but the roster spot, the flexibility, the ability to, for next year's Drew Pomerantz, who's at some AAA affiliate and trying to get his way out of a minor league deal and force his way onto a major league roster. Keller's the one he's a little younger than those other guys. And he had been a starter for a while, and the Cubs had their reasons, as you wrote from your first day at spring training, of why they liked this guy and what they were seeing. Not saying he will be the exception, but I think they'd have to be pretty open-minded about Keller just because of all the different roles he did and how, he's just a big dude too. There's no analytics for that, but
yeah,
I don't know. He looks, he's just whatever.
He looks
6'5", he looks
durable,
like someone. And his attitude, his story, I think he does feel really comfortable in this organization. His eyes were opened when he went to the Red Sox last year, and the Cubs built upon that of just kind of the information and what he can do on the mound. I think all that stuff is not easily dismissed, but yeah, if some team sees Brad Keller and makes some deal that the Cubs don't like, they're just going to let him walk. I mean, that's just how they operate.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't completely rule out a Clay Holmes situation where he tries to convert back to a starter. I wouldn't rule out. He's one of the guys I wouldn't rule them out on. I could see them finding a way to keep him if they can come to a reasonable deal. I think this is important to say because of the way the season ended. A lot of people are going to be like, how does this offense score runs? How do they do things? How do they win in the postseason? What happened to the offense down the stretch? All fair questions. But I think when I watch the playoffs and think back on the playoffs and think back to conversations with Craig Counsell about what he needed from his team to advance, it's the pitching. Get more pitching. Invest in pitching. We don't know what's going to happen to Shota Imanaga. Complicated optionality there. I think you'll write about that more in the coming days. Really, it's Cade Horton and Justin Steele coming back. That'll be huge. Jamison Tyone, Matthew Boyd, both under contract for next season. That's all important stuff. We don't know what'll happen to Colin Ray, but I think when you talk about how to build a really good playoff team and watch playoff baseball, you just need to do enough on offense. The Cubs didn't get the big hit on whatever night that was, Saturday night. They also didn't pitch well enough in game 1 and 2. And that's a huge reason why they're not advancing. They need to stock up on pitching. And they talk about it every year, but depth. And I'd like to see a swing and miss arm in the rotation. Shota was kind of that guy in his first year. The strikeouts went down. Velocity stuff kind of ticked down in general. That's tough to deal with. I think that's going to end up being what we talk about. It feels like every year we'll get a better idea at the GM meetings in a couple weeks, but every year you and I end up zeroing in on something because we get a little tidbit of information. We try and figure things out. And this is what I have a feeling this is what it is. Upgrade the pitching, work your butt off to find as much pitching as possible, whether that's trades, whether that's free agency. I think that's the path. That's the path to get to the playoffs again and go deep into the playoffs. I don't think there's any one recipe. I think it's solving for wins is what Craig Counsell or Jed Hoyer or Carter Hawkins would tell us. But I like that path. I think you really solidify your pitching. You get 2 of your big arms back healthy. I think there's a pathway for the Cubs to be really good. Then we'll have questions and figure out and think about how do you kind of solidify the offense. But I think you can really have strong pitching. It wasn't bad pitching, but clearly it was a weakness, and they lost some depth there, especially at the end with Cade Horton going down. They lost a big impactful arm, but I think that's such a huge way. I just watched in general. And it isn't even teams that were built on pitching, but their pitching is stepping up in the postseason. And find a way to scratch across a couple of runs.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the most optimistic Cubs fan out there. Do you think they had any chance to beat the Dodgers in the 7-game series after expending so much of their pitching to win a wild card round? In this scenario, winning a game 5 on the road, then having to fly to Dodger Stadium, pitching in that environment. Just don't see that happening. I also think when you look at this farm system, don't see a lot of arms that are going to be, knocking the door down here anytime soon. And
it's Jackson Higgins, and that's it.
And even that guy, was a guy the Cubs drafted, if I'm remembering correctly, because he had Tommy John or some sort of injury checker. There was a lot of load management talk this year. And even the best pitching prospects, they get hurt too. And so in talking to Justin Steele, his hope is that it's actually right around now. He should be, maybe another week or so. The idea of beginning to play catch. He may not have a fully normal, full strength spring training, just because that would imply he's automatically locked in for the opening day rotation. But the hope is that he won't be too far from that he would be doing he would have a robust spring training schedule, aiming for around opening day. Maybe that's a couple weeks after. Maybe there's a setback that changes everything. Maybe the Cubs once again are just cautious and conservative and let's just throw out May 1st, whatever. But the idea is that he should be an impactful part of next year's team after his elbow surgery. And the feedback that he's gotten is that whereas when he had Tommy John in the minors, that was almost like relearning his arm, some of the motions, that this procedure, by all indications, is something that it should feel a lot more natural just because of the way this procedure works. So we'll see that. Those are sort of internal answers that were not available against the Brewers, but I'm with you. Can Matthew Boyd replicate this? Do you trust basically locking in 3 more seasons Shota. Just all around, I think you just go for more pitching, and maybe that's how some of the bullpen issues are solved, that there's spillover, that they just get too many starting pitchers, and you have a Colin Ray. You use out-getters. You kind of take the innings puzzle philosophy to another level next year.
And I should give Colin Ray some credit. Really good end of the season, and
Yeah.
you know, he pitched well in the postseason. He gave up that solo home run. I may have jinxed him because I think I said to you after he got the out before that solo home run to Vaughn, I was like, how do you take Colin Ray out of this game? And then he gave up that 3-2 home run to Andrew Vaughn.
You'd be a great bench coach. Maybe
Yeah.
if Ryan Flaherty gets a manager's job, you could apply to be Council's bench coach.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be talking about this a lot. This is, you know, our focus for the next few months, how they fill out this roster. There's a lot of questions facing this roster. Have to rebuild a bullpen. How do you add to the pitching staff? And then how do you, like, if you're replacing Kyle Tucker, how do you do that? Just kind of what we'll be talking about over and over again, and hopefully getting good information over the coming weeks to kind of fill out that puzzle and understand the direction the Cubs want to go. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. We really appreciate you guys listening throughout the season and throughout the playoffs. We will be doing this all offseason long. Make sure to read our work. We'll be on top of it all. Thanks for listening.